Hey guys, just wanted to jump in here and let you know that we recorded this before the evening of the 26th, so we did not know about the Lakers and Clippers voting to not continue the season, and they will be dropping out of the playoffs, and this is a developing story, so we don't know where it's going to go or what's going to happen next. But when you listen to this podcast, we made predictions before we knew about them dropping out.
Welcome to Slacker Sports Show.
Good evening, sports fans, and welcome back to another podcast episode of Slacker Sports Show, where we discuss anything and everything you want to know about sports. Let's welcome in the co-host of the podcast, Mark. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing pretty well. Been a pretty busy day in sports with some things off the field that we'll talk about a little bit, but a lot going on right now in the sports world, so we got plenty to talk about today.
Yeah, and so we're going to talk about the MLB a little bit. We're going to talk about the NBA playoffs, and then we're going to talk about some other topics that we don't normally talk about, but we feel like it's something that needs to be covered. So I guess let's start first with, what is exactly going on in the sports world today. It is Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. It is Wednesday, 8/26/2020, and a bunch of boycotts are going on across the sports world. Mark, what do you think about all of the sports? I mean, it kind of started with the NBA, and then the NBA, one team did it, and it seems like now the whole NBA is doing it, and now it's kind of sprinkled into other sports. What's your insight on it?
Well, I mean, for those of you who, by the time this podcast comes out, you'll know, but this is surrounding the shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, which is in Wisconsin, very close to Milwaukee. And we won't talk about the political side or anything, but just kind of the situation that happened. He was, from what I've heard, breaking up a fight between two women, went to get in his car, and was shot by police and ended up being paralyzed. And just this is kind of reality of sports, that a lot of professional athletes are African American, and a lot of them are upset with a lot of the police shootings and kind of police violence that have been taking place lately. So, like you said, there was protests that basically started in the NBA. I think the Bucks and the Orlando Magic game was the first one I saw, as far as they had players walk off and then, or not even really come to the court. I think for the Bucks, and the Magic walked off.
Yeah, I think it was the Bucks that just didn't come out of their locker room for the game.
Yeah, and which makes sense because this community where this happened was close to Milwaukee, so it's probably hitting them about as hard as anybody. But starting the NBA and all the games taking place today were boycotted. And honestly, if you're going to pick a league for this kind of thing to start in, be the NBA, just because they're pretty lax, and they take the issues that their players are thinking about to heart, and they let them really kind of speak their mind and do what they want politically, as compared to maybe like the NFL. And that's a whole different podcast or a whole different series of podcasts if you want to talk about political parts of sports. But started in the NBA, and then I saw some in the MLB so far have been canceled. WNBA, I think originally they're planning on having the games continue, but I just got a notification not too long before we started recording. I think they're postponing games as well. And like I said, we won't talk about maybe the political part of it or anything, but when I was looking into it, a couple of different things came to mind, and I read a couple different articles, and a couple different viewpoints were brought up that I thought were interesting. As far as why these people may be boycotting, I mean, one, they may just want time to kind of process things and process what's happening in our country, but they may want to make a stance and say that you can't have an escape in sports. I mean, sports is usually kind of a place where people go to get away from other issues in the world or not think about things for a while. And I think a lot of these athletes that are trying to be politically active don't want there to be an escape. They want to talk about the issues, and they want to get to the bottom of this and have real change, which is good. So I think one reason they may be boycotting is that they don't want there to be that escape. They want people to actually focus on the issue and not just have it be swept under the rug or have sports distract from that. Another thing I thought of when I heard about this was I support people being politically active and fighting for what they believe in, but I don't know if it's really sticking it to the system that they want to change. I mean, it's been about police violence and people being unarmed, being shot, and things like that. And I won't pretend to know exactly what that's like as a white person. I'm not going to kind of voice my opinion on what African American people may feel as far as their interactions with the police. But I don't know if it's really it's drawing attention, but it's not taking action against the system that they want to have changed. I think there could be other things they may do, and this may develop in the future after this podcast is recorded. But I think there's ways of donating money, of getting politicians involved, things like that, to get the change they actually want. So it's a complicated issue, and it's kind of developed as we've gone on, and there'll probably be things that change after this podcast is recorded and after it's gone up. But it's definitely rocked the sports world today, and things have kind of come to a stop, at least for today.
Kind of just to touch on it a little bit on what I've seen like on Twitter and stuff is that big stars like LeBron James has come out and said stuff, and it's weird to talk about because kind of like what you said, we are both white. We are both white males. So to us, it doesn't hit home like it would maybe for someone that is afraid for their life. And so, I think we can both agree that there's change that needs to happen. It's just, and I'm okay with players setting out, teams setting out. I'm okay with it. Do whatever you want. It's your decision. It's your decision to make. If you have the platform to do so and you feel strongly about something, then do it and don't care what anybody says. The only thing I worry about is that now people are going after these athletes for being quote unquote selfish and all this stuff, and it's just it's weird because I don't think they're being selfish at all. I think they're using their platform for what they believe is right. They are doing nothing that is harming anybody else. So I just read a lot of just comments about, LeBron James makes millions and millions of dollars, just play the game. But if it wasn't for that, then he wouldn't be in the situation that athletes are in now. They worked hard to get where they're at, and I'm just glad that they are using their soapbox, so to speak. I'm glad they're using their platform to try to create change and make change. So, it's weird because I don't try to get too political at all. We don't really, me and my wife don't talk about really politics. We'll talk about, stuff, but we won't ever really get into politics. And that's just because I feel like politics is you see one side or the other, and it's hard for people to admit they're wrong, which I feel like is kind of what we're falling into now. I feel like people can't see both sides and agree and move on, and that'll never happen. That's just how humans work. That's just how people work. But I do think that there's good that can come out of this, and I think that sports allows people to try to make change where there's not change being met. There's politicians that we elect and we want them to make change, but the only really, I guess, higher authority than that, or even close to that high of authority, is athletes, because athletes can change minds of millions and millions of people, and they can, and because they're known everywhere. It's not like the NBA is just in America and only American people watch it. No, other countries watch it. They see what's going on and they want to make change. So I think it's good what they're doing. For people that are angry or upset that they're canceling games because they get paid to play and they're not playing, just kick rocks. I I don't know what else to say. I mean, sports aren't something that we need to survive as humans. Now, yes, it's entertainment. Yes, it's fun to watch, but it's kind of like, it's not affecting anybody by not playing these games. They're trying to make a statement. If you go into your job and you feel strongly about something and you go and you make a statement to your boss, I mean, what's the difference between that and what the NBA is doing now? So I don't have a problem with it. It has definitely changed the sports, at least for today. We'll kind of see where it goes from here, if it continues, if they kind of set out for a longer period of time, all that stuff. We'll wait and see what's going to happen with that. But now that we covered that issue, let's head to the MLB, where one of the teams that the game is postponed was the San Diego Padres, and we're going to talk about Tatis for a while. Do you remember Tatis from the last podcast?
Had a couple people talking about him.
Yeah, so he made the Rangers upset. He got people fired up, which, looking now, it really, really sparked baseball for it. I think that what he did, people threw a fit about, but it really brought awareness to baseball and to kind of the younger crowd of baseball. And Tatis is kind of at the main front of that. He made another great play this week where he ran into left field and caught a ball, and it was a great play. If you haven't watched it, then go look it up on YouTube. I'm sure you can find it. But the best thing about it is it's bringing awareness to baseball, which is trying to get that younger crowd in. And Tatis, being only 21, I believe, is kind of that younger crowd that's going to bring that younger generation in. And Tatis is killing it right now. He's hitting, as of 8/26, which is today of us recording it, he's hitting 301 average, 12 home runs, which is leading the MLB, 29 RBIs, which is leading the MLB, and then he's top 5 with 6 stolen bases. So he's kind of proving that he's here to stay for hopefully a while. I think he will kind of be that Trout kind of legacy type thing, as in, if you told a regular person that Trout's only like 29 right now, they would crap their pants, because Trout's been in the MLB forever. Well, yeah, because he's been great forever. And so I think Tatis, unless injury or something else happens, I think he is kind of the next in line behind Trout. We have a few guys that kind of could make that stance. But I think Tatis is here to stay, and he's only 21 years old. He's already doing some crazy stuff on the field. What do you think about Tatis?
Yeah, like I said last week, he's in the MVP conversation for this shortened season. Like you brought up, he's leading or top 5 in a lot of categories. It'd be kind of nice, actually. You hit on it, but if baseball could capitalize on all this attention they have, and if he could keep it up and draw those young fans in, it may be something that kind of springboards them going forward and gets some younger people attracted to the game. Like we talked about last week a little bit, being kind of brash and playing intensely isn't always a bad thing. A lot that attracts a lot of people to sports, to particular athletes and things like that. So if he can keep it up throughout this shortened season, that may be one of the best things that can come out of this for baseball. Got a young star who's drawing a lot of eyes to the game, playing his tail off. That could really bring in that young crowd for baseball, which they sorely need. So I hope he continues to succeed. I hope the Padres make some noise on the national stage. I don't know if they will, but it'd be nice to keep those eyes on baseball. So I hope he can keep it up and just keep doing what he's doing at this point.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people that I follow on Twitter, and I know a lot of baseball fans from my gaming channel that play MLB, and a lot of people went out and bought Tatis jerseys. And I mean, I don't know the numbers. I'd have to look them up, but jersey sales for Tatis have to be through the roof, which is just exactly what the baseball needs, because baseball, it's it's kind of the same thing with the NFL. There's those regular jerseys that everyone gets, like the Patrick Mahomes, the Tom Brady jerseys, that those type of jerseys are just sold all the time, like a LeBron jersey. But to have kind of someone come up that, yeah, if you're a San Diego fan, you probably have a Tatis jersey, but now he's starting to get to the point where anybody from anywhere is buying his jersey, and that's kind of what you want as a sport, because now this kid down in Houston, Texas is going to have a Padres jersey on, and, it's going to just bring so much awareness to the game of baseball. So, yeah, I hope the MLB capitalizes on this. I hope they do some marketing with him. I hope, they have those commercials with all the home run hitters, and they're talking about how many home runs they're going to hit, and, they keep one-upping each other, and they need some younger faces in there. They need some guys that can kind of carry the load for them in the future. You're looking at maybe another 4 or 5 good years of Trout. So you need to look for the future, see who you can use coming up, and I think Tatis is definitely going to be one of those guys.
Well, in baseball, another area where they kind of struggle is they're such a regional sport. I mean, you kind of have your team, and there's not a lot of national focus on baseball, or kind of a big overall look at the league. It's mostly you pay attention to your team. So there's not a lot of national stars. I mean, Trout might be one, but again, if normal people saw him on the street, they probably wouldn't know who he is. You could say a lot of the Yankees may be more national, but they just got such a big brand. But if you could get a national star like Tatis to a team that really hasn't been in the national spotlight much in the Padres, that could really expand fans and who they're paying attention to, and TV ratings and a lot of things like that. So this could be a way to get more national focus on the game, and maybe people paying attention to the league more as a whole on top of Tatis.
So to another player that kind of made national news this summer was Mookie Betts going for the money to the Dodgers. And I remember talking about it in like our first or second podcast, and I remember asking you, is he worth the money? Is he, I don't see it. Is he worth the money? And looking at his stats, it looks like I might be wrong, and he was worth the money. Right now, he's hitting .293, 11 home runs, which is tied for second, 24 RBIs, which is top 10, and 5 stolen bases. So, I would say he's playing up to the money. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think the big question I had when he got traded and then when he signed that long-term deal with the Dodgers was more about the tail end of the contract. What is it, like 13 years or something like that? It's over 10 years, I think. But I'm still worried about the tail end of his contract, but right now I think he's definitely worth the money. Like you said, he's top 10 in a lot of categories. He's still in the prime of his career. He's still playing his tail off, and it can't feel too bad for Red Sox fans because they've had a ton of success since about 2003, 2004. But just feel kind of bad for them that their front office traded one of the better players in baseball and didn't really seem to get a fair trade out. And I think they've kind of already maybe tanked on the season. They're not doing too well. I think they may have given up already, but I think he's definitely playing up to the money now. And this is on a team that was already stacked before he got there. So everything he's adding is kind of just icing on the cake. But I still have questions about the tail end of what his time will be with the Dodgers if he doesn't get traded before then. But he's definitely worth it at this point.
Yeah, and so to talk about his contract a little bit, it looks like 426. Or no, that's Trout's. His is $365 million for 12-year contract with the Dodgers, and it says that he's actually going to get paid until he is 52, and then 2044 he'll still be getting paid. So yeah, a huge contract that they're going to have to pay for a while. But I'm sure if you're a Dodgers fan, you would take that for a World Series, and they're looking like they might get there. Right now, they're in first place. Their record is 22-9. They're a couple games above everyone on that first place mark, and the Dodgers look like they might have it, but you have to remember the Dodgers look this way every year. They look like they're going to be easily into the World Series, and then catastrophe happens and they don't get to the World Series, or if they do, they lose. And it's one of those things that's kind of like death and taxes. The Dodgers getting to the World Series and losing, or losing in the playoffs, seems like it's going to happen every year.
Yeah, and just maybe kind of a quick look around the league, since we are about, I'd say, halfway through the season. Most teams have played 20 to 30 some games. Tampa Bay's leading the AL East, which is a little surprising to me. Yankees are in second there, only a game and a half behind. AL Central, Minnesota's leading by 1 game over the Chicago White Sox. They're at 20 and 11. I think we'll hit on this team in a little bit, but the Oakland A's are leading the AL West and leading the AL overall at 21 and 10. The NL East, Atlanta is leading that division by 1 game over Miami. NL Central, Chicago Cubs are leading that division by 3 games, so they're kind of starting to separate themselves. And like we talked about, the Dodgers are leading the NL West by 4 games over San Diego, who we've already talked about quite a bit. But just kind of a quick look around the league. And, of course, like we talked about early on before the season even started, in this weird COVID-19 season, things can change in a hurry. I mean, if a team goes on a run and another team slumps, everybody's so close at this point that it could really shake up the standing. So I don't know if any team should get too comfortable, but you're starting to see at least a couple of teams separate themselves from the rest of the pack.
Yeah, and the just hit on about the streaks and everything. The Yankees have lost 4 in a row, so they've been absolutely obliterated with injuries. I mean, their injuries are just been awful, honestly. I mean, they've lost Judge, they've lost Stanton, they've lost like 2 or 3 starting pitchers that now they're trying to fill in and do. And on top of everything, we got postponed games that they're gonna have to make up, and but you can't say that it's not really fair, because every team is kind of thrown into this right now. And that's kind of what to take away from this. Yeah, it's a weird season, but everyone's going through the exact same season as you. So it's a weird season, but it's going that way for everyone. And kind of another team to talk about that you said, about winning streaks and stuff. You look at San Francisco Giants, who were in last place overall, and they've won 7 games in a row. And now they're up to like 4th place in the NL West. So 7 games in a row could drastically change your season. And even a team like the San Francisco Giants are doing it. So, yeah, we're halfway through the season, about a little bit over with some teams, but we're about at that 30-game mark, and it's starting to look like the teams that we kind of thought were going to be there, we're going to be there. The only thing is the Yankees I thought would be better, but again, they've been hit with injuries, and they just haven't been able to fix that injury bug yet. Again, not a long season, so that injury bug could be the rest of the season, and we could watch and the Yankees don't even make the playoffs. So you just never know what's going to happen, but we're about halfway through, and yeah, I mean, it's been fun watching. A lot has happened in that 30 games, and I'm sure a lot will happen continuing to go forward. One thing that I do kind of want to touch on is the MLB is not in the bubble, so players can come and go as they please, kind of. I mean, their team is kind of monitoring what they do. It's not like they're out at Costco's getting food all the time and going to parties and going to bars or anything. Well, unless you're a St. Louis Cardinal. But, they've done a good job. And recently, I'm sure there has been some positive COVID testing, but within the last 2 or 3 weeks, I haven't seen any big teams kind of get it and go down with it. So I'm hoping that, we kind of have that, how we talked earlier about getting the right things in place to be able to combat this. And I feel like the MLB is doing a better job of that now. And this has kind of proven that, not like it's never going to go away, or that we won't get every once in a while positive COVID testing, but it does seem like they kind of have it figured out in the means of they know how to react to it, and the whole team's not going down anymore. It's more just like every once in a while a person will get it. So the MLB's looking good on that front. But yeah, the MLB's halfway through the season. Usually this is when we have the All-Star game, but obviously no All-Star game this year. I do know that the All-Star game that was planned for this year will be held next year in the same stadium, and I don't know who the stadium is. Probably should look that up, but anyways, now to the NBA playoffs, which we talked earlier about the demonstrations and everything, about the walkouts, the boycotting, all of that stuff. So we're going to talk about it, but just know that there's no games on tonight. All game 5s have been boycotted. So we'll wait and see kind of what comes of that. But just looking at what we know now, we got some good teams that we thought were going to be good and are struggling, and we also got some teams that I'm surprised are even in it still. And then we actually had some sweeps that I guess I didn't really see coming. But what do you think, Mark?
Yeah, like you said, there's a couple of sweeps that already happened, especially in the East. Toronto and Brooklyn. Toronto won 4-0, and that I don't think that really surprised either one of us. We both like Toronto coming into the playoffs, and Brooklyn just doesn't have their full group. I mean, KD and Kyrie both didn't even come to the bubble, and then other guys got hurt or kind of were just not as interested. So Toronto is looking really good. They won by an average about 21 points, and they just have a good, well-rounded group, and it seems like night to night a different guy can get hot. I mean, you saw Fred VanVleet would be hot one game, Pascal would be hot one game, so that wasn't too surprising an outcome, I think, for either one of us. Boston and Philadelphia, this one was kind of surprising for me, but when you factor in the Ben Simmons injury, maybe not so much. Boston swept 4-0, and they have a couple of their stars there doing pretty well. Kemba Walker is averaging about 24 points. Jason Tatum's averaging 27, and on the 76er side, they're heading into an offseason full of questions. Embiid kind of was, in some questions and interviews he had the other day, he was kind of saying, if I stay here, that's great, but if not, you kind of have to roll with the punches and move on. So I don't know if he's looking for a way out or thinks he's going to be traded. Ben Simmons, like we talked about, dislocated his kneecap early on in the bubble, and the question I hear a lot from NBA analysts is they're probably going to have to trade one of these guys. I mean, that may sound ridiculous. You have two really good young guys, but if they can't play together, I haven't heard much about them getting along or not getting along, but if they can't really play together in advance, then there's kind of questions about what you do going forward. And they did fire their coach, I think it was yesterday or the day before, Brett Brown, who's been there since the whole process started, and he was fired. I don't know what direction they're planning on going forward, what kind of coach they're looking for. I know Brooklyn said they're looking at Greg Popovich, which I don't know if anybody can pry him away from the Spurs, but Philadelphia is going to be looking for a coach coming up. Another sweep was Indiana and Miami. I think we kind of had different opinions on this coming in. I think you're thinking Indiana was going to do pretty well, and I was more on Miami's side just because I think they got a well-rounded team, and Miami came out 4-0. This is surprising. Goran Dragic was their leading scorer at 22 points per game, a little bit above that. Jimmy Butler's at right about 20, and then news came out today that the Pacers coach Nate McMillan was fired, so they're another team that's going to be looking for new leadership. And the only matchup in the East we haven't covered yet is Milwaukee and Orlando, and Milwaukee's leading that one 3-1, and I think we both probably see that one ending the next game with Milwaukee winning. What are your thoughts on the East?
Yeah, I would say Milwaukee's probably the easy one to choose. I'm really surprised at all of these sweeps. I mean, most of these teams coming in here, I mean, they're not bad teams. So, and the team that didn't get swept was the 1 and 8 seed. So, I mean, if anything, I would have thought Milwaukee would have swept Orlando. But the Toronto and Brooklyn one, kind of like what you said, didn't really surprise me. there. The Boston-Philadelphia one did kind of surprise me, and to kind of hit on the Embiid issue, he just when Simmons was healthy this regular season, he was averaging 16.4 points, 7.8 rebounds, and 8 assists a game, and not having that in the playoffs is huge. But looking at Embiid, he's averaging 31 points and 12 rebounds in the playoffs, and he's literally the only one that has that type of stats. And the Boston was just beating him up. And if Embiid has said stuff kind of like what you said, and one of the quotes the other night I heard was someone asked him if stuff is going on in the 76ers, and he just said, nope, they were better, they won, and that's about it. And that's kind of all you can say right now. I mean, when you match up against a team that's probably better than you, but you just have no help, I just don't know how the 76ers got to this point where they had, 5 or 6 years, they had like top 5 picks for 5 or 6 years, and they loaded up on all this talent, and now they're doing nothing. I mean, everyone was so excited about this rebuild, and I don't know what happened along the way, but yeah, I mean, they've pooped the bed, and I don't think it's going to get any better for them. I think if anything, it's going to get worse, because Embiid's probably not going to want to play there anymore unless they can get somebody else in there to help. And Simmons was supposed to be better than this, and so, I mean, people joke about him not being able to make threes, which I don't understand how you can shoot all day and not be able to make threes. But I don't know. I don't see the 76ers getting any better anytime soon unless they go out and possibly sign a superstar of some sort. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of superstars that are going to be ready to sign a free agent this year. I know we covered it in another podcast, but I don't know if anybody would even want to go to the 76ers because of just how poorly the GM and the owner and everything, just how poorly they've tried to do this. Because I remember 2 or 3 years ago when they were taking backlash for basically throwing games to try to get that number 1 overall pick, and they got it and everything, and then here we go 4 or 5 years later, and they still haven't done anything with it. And so I just, if I was a Philadelphia 76ers fan, I would not be happy, because they seem like they knew what they were doing, but nothing has happened the way they needed it to. And I don't see the 76ers getting past this year with the same group they had last year. I think either kind of what you said, I think Embiid or Simmons, one or the other, probably won't be back next year, whether it be a trade or something along those lines. We'll have to see. And then the Indiana Pacers and Miami game, yeah, I'm just really surprised. Indiana played decent coming into it, but Miami basically just, their whole team, it was a team game, and that's kind of the way the Miami's played all year. They haven't had really that crazy score. I mean, they got Jimmy Butler, but they don't have like that. They don't have like that LeBron figure. They kind of just got a mix of guys that score enough to win games, and they swept it 4-0. And then again with the Pacers firing their head coach. Now on to the West, we got the Lakers, who are up 3-1 on Portland. The Clippers that are up 3-2 on Dallas, Denver, and Utah. And Utah's up 3-2 in that series as the 6th seed. And then Houston and OKC tied at 2-2.
Yeah, I think the Lakers series is kind of coming into form the way we expected. Lakers are up 3-1, like you said, and the Trailblazers have just been kind of ravaged by injuries. I mean, Dame Lillard's been fighting injuries on and off. He dislocated his finger last week, and just he's running out of guys to turn to. I know Zach Collins, I think one of their younger guys, was having ankle surgery last week, then into the season, and they're just kind of limping to the finish of the season here. So I don't think either one of us are too surprised that they're down 3-1 and could probably end up getting beat in this last game. Clippers and Dallas series has been really good, and that's one I had my eye on going into the playoffs. Dallas does have that good young core led by Luka Doncic, who had a buzzer beater the other day along with a 40-point triple-double. So he's playing out of his mind and could be one of the top 10 players coming into the league next season. He's living up to the expectations a lot of people had for him coming in, so he's carrying them. But
question for you: do you think Dallas can beat the Clippers?
I am not sure. I think they could, but I don't know if they will. I guess I'll put it that way. I think the Clippers have way more talent top to bottom, but they just don't seem to play consistently. One game they're really invested, like they were in Game 5 to go up 3-2. But other games, it seems like Paul George isn't all there, and he kind of talked about that with the media. But I think if the Clippers play up to what they can do, they're going to defeat the Mavericks pretty handily and should get them in Game 6. But I really like Dallas and Luka and Kristaps Porzingis, even though he's been kind of on and off the court this series. I really like Dallas as a team coming up to watch for the next couple of years. So I think the Clippers will probably come out of this series this year, but the Mavericks will definitely make some noise going forward. Denver and Utah. Again, I'm surprised that Utah's up 3-2. I thought coming in that Denver had the more well-rounded team, and you're seeing a lot of big numbers on both sides. I mean, I know Jamal Murray for the Nuggets I think he had like a 40 or 50 point game the other day, but Donovan Mitchell's matching him for the Utah Jazz. So I guess I'm surprised at how this is going out so far, but I could see either team coming out of this one. And then Houston and OKC, I think Houston will turn it on and should take care of that series once they get back to playing, but they've seemed pretty evenly matched so far. So the West seems like it's a little bit tighter as far as level of competition and how closely matched all these teams are compared to the East.
So, yeah, the Lakers, obviously, I don't think anybody's going to disagree that they're going to win this one. Kind of what I asked you about the Clippers and Dallas is, Luka is playing out of his mind, and the Clippers just seem like they're kind of skating by, as in sometimes, and I noticed it a lot in college basketball, is some of the better teams will play down to the team they're playing. And I feel like that's the Clippers right now. I feel like they're clearly the better team this year, but they're not playing like they're the better team. They're kind of playing down to, I guess, they're just playing down to Dallas. And Dallas has been able to knock 2 games away from them. And, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas was able to win the next one and we go into Game 7 with a deciding, game. It wouldn't surprise me either way. I think, obviously, the Clippers are the better team. But, yeah, Dallas has not looked bad. I know the Clippers beat the Mavericks 154-111 the last game. So maybe that's the Clippers saying, okay, we figured it out. Let's turn it on. Let's get better for the rest of the series. The Denver and Utah, kind of as you said, I'm surprised Utah is up. Mostly because Denver looks so good coming into this. And they've been okay close games. I mean, I feel like most NBA games are close anyways, but Game 1 was in overtime. The Nuggets got that win. Game 2 was about a 19-point game. The Jazz got that win. And then Game 3 was about a 40-point game, and the Jazz got that win. Then the Jazz won Game 4 by 2 points. And now the Nuggets taking Game 5, 117-107. So they've been kind of back and forth, just on and off, and we'll have to wait and see how the end of the series goes. This might be another series that goes to a Game 7. The Houston OKC, I don't understand, honestly. I don't know how Houston continues to even lose with what they have, with who they have. They supposedly have superstars on their team, but for some reason they don't show up. I don't understand it, and I don't watch too many NBA games, but I know enough to know that the Rockets are clearly the better team. So why is the series still tied 2-2, Mark?
I think not having Westbrook is part of it. I don't know what his timetable is for coming back. I don't think he's played in the series yet, but I think having him really takes a lot out of their offense. I mean, I know Harden still puts up his numbers, but he doesn't really have that superstar number 2 to go to. And then kind of like what you talked about with the Clippers and Dallas, I think Houston, we've seen in different series in the past couple of years, I think they can kind of play down to competition too. I think we both agree that Houston's got way more talent than the Thunder, but the Thunder are playing up and Houston's playing down, so they're kind of meeting in the middle there, if that makes sense. OKC's playing better than they probably should be. Houston's kind of slacking, so this could be a series where OKC could take it if Houston kind of remains in this fog or whatever you want to call it. But Houston, based on talent alone, should take this one. So be something to watch about as far as how this series finishes up.
And then going on to the next round, two of the teams are already set, and that's the Celtics and the Raptors, and they're supposed to start on Thursday. But again, we'll wait and see kind of how everything goes with boycotting and how, the next round goes, how the rest of these games go. But once we know, I'm sure you guys will know, and we'll let you know probably next week, because most of these will probably be into the second round already and already have some games played in the second round. So we'll catch you back up next week. The last thing we want to talk about is Lionel Messi leaving Barcelona. What do you think about that, Mark?
It just kind of shocked me. I mean, I'm not a huge international soccer fan. We both pay attention to MLS more than maybe the Premier League or Champions League or anything like that. But this is one of those things, if you want to compare it to basketball, it'd be like LeBron leaving the Cavaliers and going to Lakers, or some of those NBA superstars who end up moving. I think it's that sort of shift. You have somebody in Lionel Messi he's getting older and he's been around for a long time, but he's still scoring at a high rate. He's still one of the best players in the world, wanting to leave a team who he's been with for basically his whole professional career. What I've seen as far as why he's leaving is he's not a fan of the way the front office, if you want to call it that, has handled things on and off the pitch. The team hasn't been doing as well as I think he would like on the field or things like that. And then just the way they've handled different things off the field has upset him. And they did fire their coach after they lost to Bayern Munich, and they got a new coach. I know he had talked with him before all this came out, but I think he's got more issues with the front office more than anything. And I looked at kind of his contract and what could happen, how he could be moved today. And apparently in his contract that he signed with Barcelona, there's a clause that says at the end of the year he can leave for free if he decides to. If he wants to, he can leave for free. But this is kind of in the middle of the season. I think the Champions League or Premier League, whichever league they're in, is still going on. And there's been some discussion over whether he can leave for free or whether they're still technically in the middle of the season. That makes a huge difference because if they determine he's still in the middle of the season, whatever team wants him would have to pay 700 million euros in a release cause or buyout or whatever you want to call it. And if you want a kind of conversion for that, I think it was like $824 million to get him out of his contract. So by the time you get him out of his contract and pay him, he'd probably be over $1 billion in combining a new contract and this buyout clause. The area where they're disagreeing is that since the season was kind of, I guess you could say, extended or postponed, manipulated, whatever word you want to use, due to COVID-19, they're fighting over when that getting out for free clause ended. And I think they may go to a legal battle, is what I heard. They may go to court over this to determine when he was able to leave for free. But just it was really shocking to me because it's one of the best guys in the world leaving the team he's been with for a long time. And kind of one thing, I guess, you're going to bring it back to American sports. I've heard some people say, oh, what if he comes to MLS? And I don't think there's any way that's going to happen right now. Typically, it seems like a lot of these superstar international players don't come over to the MLS until they're towards the end of their career, or if they're trying to kind of rebound and do well for a while, then go play back overseas. So I don't see him coming here. It would be probably the biggest thing to ever happen to MLS if he did, but I think he'll find another team in Europe. I know Manchester City is one team that's been really talked about as far as a destination. I'm sure everybody else would like to go for him if they can, but it just caught me off guard, the whole thing, and didn't really hear too much as far as kind of a casual soccer fan about his disdain for the front office. So really a big story that shocked me this week.
He's been there for 19 years in Barcelona, has never played anywhere else, and the fact that all of a sudden, because kind of like what you said, like I had no idea this was going on, all of a sudden he's like, yep, I want out, I'm leaving. And so I don't know exactly I don't know what the last straw was or anything like that, but Messi, again, he's 33 years old, so he's kind of already, I would say, past his prime, but Messi's kind of been in his prime since he was like 20-something years old. So who really knows when he's out of his prime until, he really falls off. But yeah, I've seen stuff like, a New York City team could probably sign him, but I don't know where they're going to find that type of money to go off and get him. It's definitely going to be an overseas team because they got a lot of money invested over there, whereas I don't think there's any MLS teams that would even come close to being able to do that buyout for him. So he's probably staying overseas, not sure where he's going next or if he's going, when he's going, any of that stuff. But pretty sure we won't see him in the MLS, at least for a while. One of the players that you're kind of talking about is Ibrahimovic. Came over for like 2 or 3 years and really, really did good, really brought a lot of spark to MLS as a whole. Just having him there playing well in front of fans and stuff really did well for the MLS, and then obviously he went back overseas to play again. So it might be something kind of like that, but yeah, I don't see him coming over here for several years. Probably he'll never even come over here. Maybe something he does when he's like 39 or 40 or something. So we'll wait and see what happens. But I was actually really surprised about it too, because Messi isn't really a guy usually that kind of makes headlines for this type of stuff. I never really see headlines where he's like disagreeing with stuff or wanting bigger contract or anything like that. So it did kind of come out of left field, as in like all of a sudden he's like, I want out of Barcelona. And you look at this from the Barcelona side, if they lose him, they probably could lose a bunch of their other players too, because I know several of their players signed on with Barcelona because Messi was there, and it'd be interesting to see if they decide that they want to leave now if Messi's not there, because in Europe, in general, the soccer is so much different over there, or as they call it, football. It's so much different over there than it is here. It's kind of like our football is their soccer. So you see all these big crazy trades, and you see Patrick Mahomes signing this type of money. It's that way in Europe for soccer. They have teams that have billions and trillions of dollars to spend on people. So obviously he's going to be staying over there, or at least a team that can afford him. If he can get out free, that would be huge for another team to come in and pick him up, because what happens in that buyout is, I'm not 100% sure on what his contract states, but usually the 700 million euros would be paid by another team. So Manchester City would pay that 700 million euros to Barcelona. Then Barcelona would have basically 700 million euros to be able to go out and get different players. But some of that might be built into his contract as well, that he gets like a certain percentage of that. So I don't know exactly what's going to go on with it. I just hope they come to a mutual agreement and either say, no, you can get out for free, or I just hope it doesn't go to courts and stuff, because that stuff just gets so messy, and it's just nobody leaves that in a good mood. So just come up with something, figure it out. I'm sure a team would pay the 700 million, except for the fact that they know if he waits till the end of the year, they get him for free. So I'm sure they would want to do that as well. So you could see nobody wanting Messi until he can get out for free. But I'm sure someone's going to want to try to get him, because he is one of the best players still in the world.
Yeah, I think that'll wrap it up for this week's episode. Thanks to everybody who's been listening. We appreciate you guys, and if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever you listen, whether that's Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, rate and review us on those apps, and we can kind of get your feedback and improve the podcast where we need to, and keep doing things that you guys like. We also have a YouTube channel. If you want to find our podcast there, they are able to be watched on there. We upload videos with the recordings on there. You can find our YouTube channel by searching Slackers Sports Show. And then you can also follow us on Twitter to get updates, to know when episodes come out, to get our input on different stories that come up by searching at Slackers Sports on Twitter.
All right, and I will make sure that I get this up on Thursday. I've been doing a bad job of getting it out on the correct day, but I will get it out Thursday unless my power goes out or internet goes out. I will get it up on Thursday. And then make sure you subscribe so that you can catch the next episode of our AFC kind of division for football. We're going over each of the divisions. Right now, this coming Sunday will be the AFC South, which has the Texans, Titans, Colts, and Jaguars. So you'll want to make sure that you listen to that on Sunday.